Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a world where, well, where reality is fracturing, and the most frightening war a soldier can fight is the one happening inside his own body.
Yeah.
We open not with a military charge, but with a dream. You had this young man, Nevare Burvelle, and he's lying in what's described as indescribable comfort with his lover, the tree woman.
It's this moment of perfect peace.
And it's instantly shattered by this gruesome, visceral visual of her abdomen just slashed open, her entrails spilling onto the moss right there between them, staining his skin.
That shocking, immediate juxtaposition, absolute comfort dissolving into absolute horror, it just perfectly encapsulates the conflict at the heart of this entire deep dive.
It really does.
We've pulled together a custom stack of sources for you today, drawing really heavily on these intimate first-person accounts from Forest Mage, but also military history lectures, private correspondence.
Right. And our mission today is, well, it's surgical. We are charting the trajectory of this young cadet, Nevare Burvelle, who is caught between the rigid discipline of his Gurnian military heritage and this powerful, secret Speck self.
This whole deep dive is basically a forensic reconstruction of his deteriorating reality. We're tracking the physical, the psychological, and the social collapse that follows this trauma, a trauma that should have killed him.
It should have. But instead, it radically transformed him.
And these sources, they let us see the impossible bind he's in. By day, he's the loyal soldier son, determined to go out and conquer the plains people.
And by night?
By night, he's becoming the vessel of their very magic. So I think we have to start with the event that created this whole dual reality, the Speck Plague.
To really grasp the uniqueness of Nevare's transformation, we first have to understand the sheer scale of this plague.
Yeah.
And, more importantly, its strategic nature. This was not some natural outbreak.
Precisely. Our military sources are really clear on this. The Speck Plague was not a random contagion. It was a deliberate, sophisticated magical attack.
How did they do it?
The Specks used these specialized practitioners, they called dust dancers, to sow disease. And they didn't just target random villages. They went right for the core of the Journeying establishment.
That strategic targeting is so key here. Colonel Rebin's notes, they confirmed the intent, which was to sow disease specifically among the nobility and, more crucially, among the future military leaders at the academy.
They succeeded in thinning our ranks, as he puts it.
Yeah. This was a surgical strike against Journey's future officer corps. It was designed to instill instability and doubt at the highest levels of command, years before these cadets would ever even take the field.
It's psychological warfare executed through disease.
Absolutely.
And the human cost, it was crippling. It shattered the very identity these young men relied upon. The casualty numbers were severe. Nevare's first-year class was just halved. Senior classes took similar losses.
But the psychological blow was even worse, wasn't it?
Far worse. Think about the mindset of these young men. They show up at the academy seeing themselves as future young heroes, right? They expect to die gloriously in battle, swords drawn, defending the frontier.
Right. A hero's death.
Instead, they died in their beds, soiled with vomit and urine, and whimpering feebly for their mothers. The sources are just unflinching in that description.
Wow.
So that collective belief in their own invincible courage, their military dignity, it died right alongside their comrades in those fetid sickbays.
It's the loss of dignity, that realization that they could die so miserably, so privately, without any honor at all. It would fundamentally shatter that martial identity they'd been building.
Exactly. And now we have to look at the baseline trauma, sort of the norm for a survivor. And that is represented so vividly by Trist Wissam. Trist is the walking embodiment of the plague's victory.
His physical state is just a tragedy. He's described as skeletal, moves stiffly, wheezes constantly. He's literally diminished.
But the truly chilling detail is in his nightmares. He dreams of waking up in the quicklime pit grave.
Oh, yeah.
He's underneath his dead friend Nate, and he's struggling to claw his way out of a pile of putrefying corpses.
That is such a specific, terrifying image. It forces you and Nevare to confront the reality that they were, one fever spike away from being part of that rotting mass themselves.
And Trist's brutal conclusion, it just encapsulates the psychological toll. He says he's done as a soldier. Done before I started.
His body's compromised, his mind is haunted. He is the standard expected outcome. Just wasting, diminished, broken.
Which brings us to Nevare, the complete anomaly, where Trist wasted away and Nevare achieved what he calls a complete recovery.
And he attributes this to a very specific fevered, magical confrontation, right? Slaying the manifestation of the tree woman and reclaiming a stolen piece of his own spirit.
Right, and he didn't just regain health, he achieved a kind of a hyper-recovery.
And here's where the first real alarm bell sounds. Nevare begins to put on flesh healthily and robustly, which is the exact opposite of what happened to every other single survivor.
Trist is skeletal, Nevare is robust. The physical evidence immediately contradicts everything they know about the plague. His recovery isn't natural. It's a radical re-engineering of his body.
And that re-engineering manifests immediately in his psychological landscape, specifically his dreams. This is the source of his internal war.
It really is. By day, the Journeyman soldier self-prevails. He celebrates his act. He views the killing of the tree woman with the cold iron of Mycavala's saber as this heroic spirit-saving measure. He feels satisfaction. He thinks he's secured his sanity and his future.
But that heroism is immediately undermined by this visceral guilt and the profound erotic component of the dream, which surfaces every single night.
Exactly. The Speck self awakens, and it mourns the victim. He recalls her not as some demonic antagonist, but as ageless, and the pillowed roundness of her flesh was abundant and inviting.
It's the ultimate psychological double-bind. He kills the thing that threatens his soul, but that thing is also his lover. And in his dreams, the Speck self feels this treasonous guilt for the murder.
He seeks indescribable comfort in her embrace, only for the physical consequences of his soldierly act, the open, bleeding abdomen, the coiling entrails, to immediately shatter that peace. He is literally lying in the results of his own internal war.
And that betrayal is amplified by the philosophy of the magic itself, which operates completely outside of Gurnian morality, outside of concepts of personal loyalty or even sanity.
The tree woman's warning is just so fatalistic. It's an acceptance of destiny. She tells him, you belong to the magic now, and whatever it must have you do, you will do.
Let's just pause on that for a second. The weight of that statement for a soldier. A Gurnian officer's life is defined by agency, by discipline, by self-command.
The ultimate insult to a soldier, worse than failure, is a lack of agency.
Absolutely. And this philosophy, it just strips Nevare of his fundamental belief in self-determination. He's not a commander. He's just a tool of the power.
She insists that they, both of them, Nevare and her, are merely instruments. They're tools of this irresistible force. And she describes the magic like a massive flood that will sweep away all that opposes it.
So this just perfectly sets the stage for his impossible internal war. The old Nevare is fighting for rational control, for military duty, for discipline.
While the new Nevare is being told he's a puppet of an irresistible force, and that force is manifesting physically, pushing him toward the very people he is trained and sworn to fight and conquer.
So this internal magical conflict is now immediately thrust into the external rational world of Gurnian science. The physical anomaly that Nevare represents is now subject to medical scrutiny, personified by Dr. Amicus.
Right. Enter the Academy physician, Dr. Amicus. This is a man who is, at the same time, a heroic plague fighter and a staunch rationalist.
And our sources show his absolute fascination with Nevare's case. He monitors him weekly, documenting the one unique symptom, the weight gain, with these cold clinical observations like still gaining flesh, I see.
Amicus is operating under a very specific scientific mandate. He wants to determine the cause to prevent future spread. He's not really interested in a cure. And he categorically rejects any notion of magic. For him, the cause has to be physical or, more worryingly, moral.
And he just systematically debunks Nevare's own tentative theory that the dust dance's flung dust was the trigger.
He points out two really logical flaws. First, another cadet, Rory Hart, witnessed the dance, admitted to more than casual contact with the Specks themselves, yet he suffered absolutely no symptoms.
So if it were an airborne contagion, Rory should have been affected.
Exactly. The second flaw targets the Speck's own strategic logic. Amicus cites a past outbreak near the Barrier Mountains where a lot of Speck children were among the sickened. Why would the Specks deliberately use a weapon that hurts their own children?
For Amicus, that rules out the magical focused attack theory. So he defaults to a natural or maybe a moral contagion model.
And that's where he lands. If the cause isn't airborne magical dust, Amicus leans heavily into the theory that aligns with all his cultural biases: sexual transmission.
He consistently pressures Nevare, offering him yet another opportunity to admit I'd had carnal knowledge of a Speck.
This is such a profound moment of cultural conflict. Amicus is trying to rationalize the most virulent, anomalous case by applying the lens of sin. He needs Nevare to confess to a moral failing sleeping with an enemy native to explain the physical corruption.
He's totally ignoring the fact that Nevare's actual contact was only in the spirit world, in his fevered dreams. By forcing this question, Amigas makes Nevare's magical transformation synonymous with moral degradation in the eyes of the entire Journeyan medical establishment.
But regardless of the cause, whether it's magic or gluttony, the physical reality is just undeniable, and it is escalating. Nevare keeps insisting the weight is just him about to go through another growth spurt.
But the daily evidence and the mirror, they betray him completely.
The sources give us this agonizing detail about the physical shame. His meticulously tailored uniform buttons are straining, and they frequently just pop off at the most awkward moments.
And on the jank ship, the mockery is brutal and it's public. He's called rotund. Someone asks if he's with child. I mean, the sheer humiliation is this constant drumbeat against his soldier's pride.
And the moment of ultimate reckoning comes when he uses his sister Jarl's full-length mirror. The shock is existential.
He sees that the weight is distributed all over. His cheeks are round and jowly, and most devastatingly, his gut is starting to hang. This is not the body of a lean, disciplined Journeyan officer.
And what makes this so terrifying for him is the contradiction. Nevare tries to convince himself he brought the change on by a lack of discipline.
But the sources confirm that is demonstrably false. He endures hard travel, he submits to the 3-day fast his father imposes on him, yet his body continues to gain flesh, relentlessly, almost hourly.
This introduces the terrifying absolute possibility that the gain is entirely unnatural, that it's magical. His willpower is powerless against this transformation.
And this physical change immediately changes his social standing, starting on that jank ship journey. This trip was supposed to be his triumphant return from the academy.
Instead, it's just ruined by public humiliation and derision from the wealthy youth who see him as an object of ridicule.
That shame culminates in a shocking display of volatile, new power during a confrontation on the spiral stairs. He's being mocked for being too large and slow on the narrow steps, and Nevare decides to just stand his ground. He uses his unexpected weight, his mass, to his advantage.
Yeah, he recognizes the potential of his new physical reality.
And the internal monologue here is dangerous. He describes the feeling as like holding an excellent hand of cards. It's controlled, it's calculated aggression.
He feigns politeness, right? He offers to help his mocker up the steps, but he uses his bulk and his positioning to manipulate the situation.
Which results in the man slipping and sustaining a very bad break with the bone poking right out.
Nevare feels a tiny niggle of guilt about how severe the injury is, but the incident confirms a dark truth for him. His body is now a source of unexpected power and even a kind of controlled violence that goes far beyond standard soldierly discipline.
The Speck self is learning how to weaponize the Burvelle body.
Yeah, exactly. So the physical change is now manifest, and it's volatile. If the soldier self can't control his body's size, the Nevare that emerges decides to test the limits of its new, unexpected power and identity.
And this takes him from public violence on the stairs to some highly personal testing in 2 very specific sexual encounters.
The first encounter is with the buxom kitchen maid at a farmstead. And at first, he's fumbling, he's the awkward cadet. But then the other self awakens.
And this other self is revealed to be not only experienced, but skillful at bed games.
This sudden acquisition of competence, this forbidden knowledge and physical prowess, it just solidifies the idea that the Speck self is this independent, experienced entity that's just residing inside him.
But the second encounter offers a pretty brutal reality check.
It does. Seeking, confirmation, maybe some flattery, he goes to a professional prostitute. But her response is purely transactional and brutally blunt. She dismisses him as just a heavy bloke who could break a girl's ribs.
And then adds injury to insult, calling him tight-fisted.
That is the ultimate public humiliation. He learns this painful difference between the intimate, skilled connection offered by the other self and the cold, unromantic commerce of the Journeyan city.
The humiliation, though, it does serve a purpose. He resolves to stay away from common prostitutes for Corsina's sake, desperately clinging to the image of his intended, disciplined Journeyan future.
Even as that future is physically, literally slipping away from him.
Okay, so let's pull back now and examine the external ideology that Nevare is fighting so desperately to uphold, the very structure of Journeyan society, even as his body aligns with the enemy. The military history lecture is the ideological bedrock for all of this.
This is absolutely critical context for understanding Nevare's moral paralysis and his role in the world. Cadet Lieutenant Bailey's lecture, it justifies Journeya's massive eastward expansion, not as simple conquest, but as historical necessity.
Bailey explains this historical trauma. Gertia was defeated by Lansing because of superior military technology, specifically the cannon.
Right. And this forced King Trovan to turn east toward unclaimed territories, occupied by what they call primitive folk, lacking a central government, like the plainsmen.
The implication is pretty clear. Gertia was forced to conquer lesser opponents just to survive and thrive.
And they teach this conquest as a moral imperative. It's framed within this concept of the natural order. Journey isn't conquering, it's providing the benefits of civilization, replacing fickle magic with modern tools for living.
And what are those specific benefits? Our sources, they list them out explicitly: penning cattle, schooling, written language, and importantly, the worship of the good God.
The message is clear and absolute. Journey and superiority is inevitable, it's technologically advanced, and it's divinely ordained. This grand rhetoric creates a moral shield for what is really brutal conquest.
And this ideology finds its ultimate tangible expression in one material: cold iron.
Yes, iron is the backbone of our modernizing world, and crucially, it is explicitly described as being anathema to plains magic.
So the introduction of iron tools isn't just practical. It's a systematic metaphysical dismantling of the indigenous culture's reliance on their own power.
The sources detail specific examples of this. Iron plows negate the finding magic relied upon by foragers, tying them to fixed agricultural plots. Flint and steel, they replace the need for fire mages. Iron is fundamentally disruptive to the entire plains social and spiritual structure.
Most dramatically, though, in a military context.
In a military context, iron shot, despite having manufacturing disadvantages compared to the more common lead shot, it proved superior because it would destroy their magic as well as cause injury.
So Gurnian military doctrine realized that the most effective way to defeat a plains mage was not just to kill the body, but to neutralize the magic first.
Exactly.
And this tactical reality is so tragically humanized by Nevare's personal, wrenching anecdote. He silently recalls witnessing a wind wizard who had summoned a protective wind for his small boat.
And the wizard was shot down by iron shot fired by these drunken noblemen as a jest, a casual act of cruelty.
The power of the iron disrupted the spell immediately. The wizard was flung into the river, and he drowned, a victim of noble recklessness and iron's absolute power.
That anecdote, the iron shot fired as a jest, is maybe the most chilling detail in all of these sources. It just strips away all the grand rhetoric of the natural order, and it reveals the sheer, casual brutality and callousness of their conquest.
And this tension, it surfaces when his friend Lofert asks if Gurnia has the right to just run over them. Nevare feels this flicker of doubt. He questions the benefits for the fallen on both sides, but he immediately suppresses it. He dismisses it as cynical musing.
And he falls back on his prescribed social role. He concludes that he is a soldier son, born to serve, and if the good God had wanted me to ponder fate or question the morality of our eastward expansion, he would have made me a third son born to be a priest.
He's using his birth order as an explicit shield against critical thinking. He's reaffirming his dedication to duty over morality, even when the evidence of this casual, deadly cruelty is undeniable.
He's trying so desperately to lock down his journey and identity, but his internal reality, the Speck self, is about to force a direct, catastrophic engagement with the very magic his people are trained to destroy.
Nevare's detour to the dancing spindle. It's not just sightseeing. It feels like a collision course set by his internal, magically driven self. This monument is fundamental to the Plains people's power structure. It's a literal centralization of their spiritual force.
He describes it in such immense, almost overwhelming detail. It's an immense red stone pillar, striated with these spiraling white bands, and it's leaning at an impossible angle.
It just absolutely dominates the canyon, which contains the ruins of a roofless city below it.
And the visual effect is crucial here. The spiraling white stripes and the heat shimmer create a convincing illusion that the spindle is truly spinning, and it fills Nevare with this sense of awe and delight. It represents something powerful, ancient, and deeply respected.
He's compelled to approach it. He follows a footpath up to the spiral step tower, and as he climbs, the noise of the spinning grows louder.
It's a deep rumbling and a peculiar, warm smell, delicious, like singed spices, which he identifies as being generated by the stone's impossible, illusory movement.
He notes this hazy layer of air or mist surrounding the core that truly seems to spin, even though journey and logic insist the illusion should cease when you get close up. He is crossing the boundary into magic.
And it's right here, as he's about to reach out and touch the core, that he gets a direct prophetic warning from a plainswoman.
She says, The old people say it's dangerous to touch the spindle. You'll be caught in the twine and carried.
But Nevare, driven by an instinct you can't explain, he just ignores her. He brushes the spinning substance.
And the consequence is immediate, violent, and utterly terrifying. His spirit or his essence is immediately snatched up. It's described as being drawn as fine as yarn and wrapped around the immense spindle. His consciousness is fully immersed in the raw, magical concentration of the planes.
In this moment of hyper-awareness, the Speck self triumphs. It takes control. He gains immediate, specific, and strategic knowledge. The spindle concentrates and harvests magic, serving as the well that not only the Cadona, but all the plains people drew from.
And the political allegiance of his new self is just ruthlessly clear. His immediate strategic realization is that he has to destroy it, so no plainsman can ever use this concentrated magic against the Specks.
His newly adopted magical people. He laughs aloud, triumphant, feeling the harnessed magic at the tips of my fingers, ready to enact destruction. He has fully betrayed his journey and heritage in this single moment.
The destruction, however, is achieved through this profound, painful irony. Before Nevare can figure out how to dismantle the spindle using magical power, Journey technology intervenes.
A vandal boy named Jard. He tries to scratch his initials into the sacred stone with a simple sheath knife.
The contact is catastrophic. Cold iron against concentrated magic causes this terrible whine, like an ungreased axle, and it generates a thick, ghostly smoke.
The harnessed magic begins tearing free in wild, flapping sheets as the iron does what Journey military doctrine says it must do: destroy the magic.
And Nevare, acting entirely on the magical self's frantic warning, he shoves Jard to safety, believing he's saving the boy from being magically consumed.
But the intervention has a terrible side effect. The iron knife slides down the bowl and it wedges precisely beneath the spindle's unseen tip, which is embedded deep in the earth.
The outcome is instant and total. The vast spiritual momentum of the concentrated magic meets the unyielding anti-magical force of the cold iron knife. The spindle ground to a halt.
This cessation is absolute and devastating. The harnessed magic suddenly bursts free and scattered, and the world goes black and still.
Nevare realizes with this profound, awful certainty. The dancing spindle no longer danced. The magic of the plainspeople was broken.
And the immense, crushing weight of guilt just falls upon him. This was not the casual cruelty of a drunken nobleman's jest, like the Wind Wizard's death. This time, Nevare himself is entirely personally culpable.
He has destroyed the most sacred artifact of the people he is now magically destined to serve. His transformation has led only to ruin.
So he flees the disaster at the spindle. He returns home, only to find that his internal conflict has solidified his external disgrace. His homecoming is not one of celebration. It is immediate, furious rejection.
His father immediately just dismisses the travel, the academy success, the trauma of the plague. He focuses exclusively on the visual evidence, Nevare's girth. He demands to know how Nevare could have undone years of physical training through sloth and gluttony.
And the father's response is purely rational, Journeyan discipline. He's failing entirely to recognize the magical nature of the weight gain. His punishment is immediate and, well, futile. Hard labor, prying rocks, and an enforced fast to trim some of that off you.
This action just reinforces the idea that Nevare's physical state is a moral failure and that he is solely responsible for it.
And the family betrayal follows swiftly, led by his sister, Jarl. She confronts him, calling him a selfish pig whose appearance is going to ruin her future.
She is terrified. His girth will eclipse her at the wedding and jeopardize her highly desired match with Case Remoir. Her concern isn't for his health or his future, but for her own social standing.
But it's his fiancée, Carsina, who delivers the most crushing blow. When she sees him, her eyes widen in disbelief and horror.
She actively avoids him, forcing him to corner her just to demand a conversation about their future.
And this is the trigger. In his fury at her rejection, the Speck, Self, the soldier's boy, lashes out with this terrifying, unpredictable fury, abandoning all pretense of gentlemanly discipline.
He delivers this unforgivable, venomous threat. There will come a time before you die, Carsina, when you will crawl on your knees and beg pardon for how you have treated me this day.
He regrets the words instantly. He knows they were too rash, too vicious, and entirely undeserved by the civil Nevare, but they're out.
They cement her horror, guaranteeing their engagement is doomed, and confirming her fear that the man she intended to marry has been replaced by someone volatile and dangerous.
And amidst this crushing personal chaos, Nevare makes a shocking discovery that confirms the deep political and spiritual hypocrisy of the society he's joining. While he's looking for a quiet spot at the Porrentag estate Carcina's home, he enters a hidden, private garden.
And there he finds a shocking altar, a carrion tree, with hooks impaling dead doves and a split bird whose entrails were spread for reading.
This is clear, undeniable evidence that the Porrente family secretly worships the old heathen gods, violating the solemn oaths they made before the good god, the very symbol of Gurnian spiritual superiority. The alliance that was supposed to secure his future is built on a lie.
And crucially, the magic is still active there. When Nevare, in a moment of pity, tries to end the misery of one still-twitching bird impaled on a hook, it suddenly revives, opens its eyes, and flies away.
This moment confirms to Nevare not only that he is dealing with profound hypocrisy, but also with raw, dark, active magic.
So the stage is set for the final public humiliation, the dinner scene. Nevare, still weak from the fast and trying to follow his father's order to eat something to show respect and dignity, is catastrophically betrayed by a well-meaning servant.
The man, seeing Nevare's immense girth, he assumes he's serving two people, or maybe just a man of immense appetite. So he brings out two heaped platters, one of meat, one of bread and pastries, just overflowing, and places them right in front of Nevare.
The gesture itself is a public statement of Nevare's shame.
Weakened by the 3-day fast and just overwhelmed by the sight of food, Nevare loses control entirely. He consumes both platters, experiencing this profoundly carnal pleasure that borders on obsession and gluttony. He feels total satisfaction but immediate total shame at the public display of appetite.
His father's reaction is cold, absolute, and silent. He sits in stony silence, watching the whole performance. Then, leaning in, he whispers the final, devastating verdict.
I have never been so ashamed of you. If you will not maintain your body and your dignity, then you can go as a common foot soldier. But go you shall, boy. Go you shall.
Nevare's career as a commissioned officer is over. It's been replaced by the lowest possible rank and profound public family shame. The failure is now cemented, rationally, in his father's mind. His son is a glutton who lacks dignity.
But the true, absolute, and final betrayal happens days later with the mail delivery. Nevare receives his official honorable medical discharge from Dr. Amicas, citing a post-recovery condition that is unlikely to respond to any treatment and renders him unable to serve.
That's the official final journey and verdict. He is a failure because of his obesity, a physical flaw.
But crucially, his father also possesses the full medical file, and it contains the aide's notes falsely recording Nevare's confession of sexual contact with the Speck on Dark Evening.
A confession Nevare insists never happened in reality. It was only in his fevered dreams, a coerced lie he made under duress.
But the physical reality, the weight gain, has lent credence to the lie. The false confession has damned him permanently in his father's eyes as filth, reinforcing the end of his military future based on perceived moral corruption, not just physical failure. The external world fabricated a moral reason to explain his magical transformation.
So this deep dive reveals these extreme, painful consequences of Nevare's magical intrusion, which has, it's literally transformed his body and utterly shattered his military future. He's trapped in an impossible dual reality.
He is. The rational world of his father insists his body is a failure due to gluttony and moral weakness, a result of that coerced lie. Yet the magical world reveals his body is becoming a vessel for reclaimed ancient power, a necessary consequence of slaying the tree woman.
Nevare's identity crisis is just literalized in his physical form. He is physically becoming the heavy-set, powerful man aligned with the plains magic, even as he desperately tries to conform to the lean, disciplined Gurnian soldier ideal.
He tried to deny the magic by embracing discipline and duty, but the magic won. He destroyed the central artifact of the plains people's magic at the spindle, using journey and cold iron, yet gained nothing but shame and confusion for his efforts.
The story shows us the horrifying ease with which an objective fact, an official medical discharge for obesity and unfitness, can be based entirely on a lie, the forced confession of sexual contact.
And it illustrates how superior technology like cold iron can be weaponized not just for physical combat, but to destroy priceless, irreplaceable cultural and spiritual heritage like the dancing spindle, making him an agent of destruction for the very people he is magically sworn to.
So what does this all mean for you? Nevare is left trying to distinguish between self-discipline and magical compulsion when the evidence of his own body flatly contradicts his greatest efforts. We see the terrifying ease with which an external power, whether magical or political, can use your own body or a single coerced lie to redefine your entire identity and destroy your destiny.
The provocative thought we want to leave you with is this. At what point does resisting a seemingly destined powerful change, whether that's professional, personal, or spiritual, become more destructive than simply accepting the transformation, even if that acceptance means becoming someone entirely unrecognizable to your former self?